Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Handle with Care, Cancer and Beyond is a podcast that gives everyone and anyone a place to come and keep it real about their cancer experience. Welcome to Handle with Care, Cancer and Beyond.
Hello and welcome back to Handle with Care, Cancer and Beyond. I'm Chris Donovan, co-host here with Carrie Madrid, and today we have a great conversation with a man named Joe Bullock. Now, he was diagnosed with stage 3B colorectal cancer following a routine colonoscopy at the age of 50. He talks about being diagnosed, he talks about treatment, and he talks about a really great Facebook group called Man Up to Cancer, which is a really, really great place for men with any type of cancer to be a part of, so check that out. We talk about all sorts of things, including colontown.org. So enjoy this conversation with Joe, and to connect with him on Twitter or Instagram, it's at jbullock114. Enjoy this conversation.
Hey everyone, we are back with another guest from the Man Up to Cancer crew, as I call it, Joe Bullock from Durham, right?
Yes, Durham, North Carolina. I'm a Southern boy. I grew up local in the area. I've been here all my life, basically. In fact, the street I live on is called Bullock Lane. It's an old
Really?
family farm.
Nice.
Yeah, so,
Nice.
yeah.
Wow. So we were just chatting a little bit before we started recording that you had never been to California until last year you attended a conference or something, right?
Yeah, it was last fall. In fact, I hadn't been on a plane in 30 years, so the whole experience was brand new to me. Not only was I just the first time being on a plane in many, many years, but also going to the other part of the country. And
Yeah.
I'd never been past Tennessee, so yeah, it's a new
Wow.
experience
Wow. And I've
all the
never
way
been your
around.
way.
Yeah.
I gotta get out there. I gotta find a reason to come out there,
Uh-huh.
make a conference happen or something.
Yeah,
Huh?
that's exactly what it was for me. Yeah, exactly.
Nice. So Joe is a stage 3B colorectal cancer survivor, diagnosed in 2018, no?
Yes, I was in
So,
May of 2018.
okay. And I read that it was after a routine colonoscopy at the age of 50. So you were actually one of those responsible people that went and had it because you were 50, or had you been having symptoms, or what's the
Well,
deal?
well, it was interesting. My dad actually had just passed away from prostate cancer, and I had been his caregiver for a couple of years before he passed away. And probably a few months before then, I started showing some signs, just like blood in my stool. I had fatigue. I had what you would call like IBS.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was probably starting to happen around my 49th year
Okay.
during all this process. And I pretty much doctor Googled, which you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And a lot of what it was coming back was the hemorrhoids or stress. I really
Mm-hmm.
didn't think colorectal cancer because I always, at that point I wasn't educated in the disease, and I kind of thought that was sort of the older man's disease. I had a
Kind of,
grandfather who was like in his 80s, that had something similar.
right, right. And that's a good point. I'm glad that you said that. I just want to stop there for a second, that you thought it was an older man's disease, right? That's kind of how in my breast
Yeah.
cancer world, that's what people would always say. It's like an older white
Mhm.
woman's disease, right? And yet we know
Right,
so many
right.
younger people and men are diagnosed as well. So you'd
Yes,
had these,
yes.
so is that classic symptoms? Blood and stool, fatigue?
That is classic symptoms.
Okay.
I've had friends though that have had no symptoms at all.
Oh,
Much younger who really had no symptoms at all. So yeah, but those are classic symptoms. It's typically blood in your stool. It's typically some fatigue, unexplained weight loss, are usually the core symptoms for colorectal cancer.
and you know what? I was just thinking, those symptoms that you just, aside from blood and stool,
Mhm.
you could just chalk that up to the stress you were under
Right, right. And that's like I say, when I
from
Dr. Google, that's
caregiving.
what came back. It was stress and hemorrhoids, different things were popping up. So, so then when I went for my appointment, I went to the appointment and I explained to my doctor. And the funny thing is, back in 2018, the age of screening was 50.
Okay.
Today, the age of screening is 45. So
Oh,
through advocacy, we've gotten that lower to 45.
fantastic.
But I remember it was like September of that year, and I remember explaining all these symptoms to my doctor, and he was like, "Well, you don't really have a family history of colorectal cancer, so you'll need to wait until your 50th birthday, which is
Hmm.
going to be a month, before you can actually make that phone call to request a colonoscopy." So I had to wait a whole month with
Yeah.
this disease living in my body if I could even get a colonoscopy.
That's
And so
such
today,
crap.
luckily,
Oh, I
yeah.
hate that.
So
I
if I
hate
had
that.
got, I know, I just hate that. And so if I had gotten it at 45, I may have only been like a stage one.
Right.
I wouldn't have
Mhm.
had to go through the chemo and all I went through. So that's why I think the whole advocacy component is so important, because we got that stage lowered to
Absolutely.
45. So,
Absolutely.
and I think recently they even said, I've heard recently that even your first time colonoscopy is covered, is what I've learned recently as well. Um,
Okay.
so,
Yeah. So, okay. So you're having these symptoms. You go in, you have your colonoscopy, you wait for results. Were you expecting anything to come back, or what was that feeling of waiting for results?
well, it's interesting because so I made the appointment for the colonoscopy, and it was so this is like the fall. This is October of 2018. So I made this schedule the colonoscopy for the day before Thanksgiving, because well, yeah, it was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, because I was teaching at the time and I would be off on break.
Right.
So my wife was like, "Well, we'll push Thanksgiving into like Friday and Saturday, and that'll give you time to recover." So, unfortunately, 2 days before my scheduled colonoscopy, my mom died of a massive heart attack.
Oh, geez.
So I had to cancel that colonoscopy,
Mhm.
um, obviously, to to um, help my sister with my mom's passing.
Right.
So I didn't actually reschedule the colonoscopy because I just kind of the symptoms kind of went away, and so I thought, well, maybe I'm okay.
Yeah.
Symptoms have gone away. I'm just gonna deal with what was going on in my life at that moment. Really wasn't wanting to deal with it over the holidays that year. So it wasn't until probably February of that year, the symptoms really started hitting, and of 2018, that the symptoms were really starting to come back at me.
Hmm.
So my wife was like, "You really need to call and we need to figure this out." So I called, rescheduled the colonoscopy, and that wasn't until May of 2018. Once again, I was a teacher at the time, so I wanted to make it convenient. So I
Yeah.
waited till I finished school. And so yeah, so I scheduled the colonoscopy, and so you go through the procedure, and we all know the prep is terrible. The prep is the worst part of it. Because basically you have to basically clean yourself out,
Right. Right.
And so then we did the procedure that morning, and as I'm into the procedure, I did fall asleep. But then about 10 minutes into it, which is about halfway through, it's about 20 minutes for colonoscopy typically. So I woke up about 10 minutes into it, and I look up at the monitor, and I'm pointing at the monitor. I'm looking at the doctor, and I'm saying, "Is that me?" And he goes, "That's you on the screen. We've gotten into your colon. We've gotten around the tumor. We've gotten to the other side of it." So, and I'm telling him, I'm looking at him going, "That's cancer. I know what that looks like."
Hmm.
So I'm basically seeing that I have cancer on the screen at the time. And
It's so creepy, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, it's
It's
what you
creepy.
had all these
It's
Google, I had all these Google images in my head, so I knew what I
right.
was looking at,
Yep, that's similar to
you
when I
know.
had my breast biopsies, and you're laying on the table and
Right,
it's like a guided, so I'm laying on the table and I'm looking up at the screen, and they're using like ultrasound guided, so I
right,
see the needle go in, and I'm like, okay, first of all, that's
yeah,
creepy. Then you see the
right,
tumor itself and it's like, oh
yeah.
crap. There's no, so you knew at
Yeah,
that
that's
point.
how I felt. I knew at that point. And the
Okay.
doctor was really good. He got me calmed down, and he said, "We're gonna get you cleaned up, get you back in recovery, and we're gonna have a real long talk." But the one thing he reassured me with, which I think was really great, what he said was, "We've got you." He didn't say I
Yeah.
had cancer. He said, "We've got you. We've got it early." So he really just reassured me of that. And so yeah, so I got back to recovery. Luckily, I'm very blessed. My wife is an RN. She's a nurse.
Awesome.
In fact, at the hospital where I received treatment. So
Perfect.
she was really able to, yeah, right. Because I was just completely lost. Just, we kind of knew something, but we weren't expecting it to hear cancer that day.
Right.
I was thinking, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just because you can have. I had 3 polyps, and then I had the one diseased polyp, which became the tumor.
Got it.
It grew into the tumor.
Because
So
a lot of people have benign
they were.
polyps.
Yeah, I had a couple. I think one of them was benign. I think the other 2 were precancerous, and then the other one was the tumor. So they removed the 3, and then obviously I had to have surgery to remove the other tumor.
Mhm.
And that was the next step.
How soon
So
after your results did you have surgery?
um, probably. Well, this is funny. We had planned a family vacation, and so I asked the doctor. I was like, Should I cancel the vacation? Should we not go on vacation?" He's like, "No, go on vacation, go enjoy it. Um, it'll be here when you get back, basically." So that's what we did. We took a couple of
Okay.
weeks, went on vacation, and then I came back and we scheduled the surgery. And I think it was in late June of that year
Okay.
I had the surgery to remove. And it was luckily for me, my colon cancer was in the upper part of my colon, so
Okay.
they were able to do what's called a resection,
Mhm.
and they just removed like a foot of my colon and resected it.
Okay.
But they did remove 40 lymph nodes,
Wow.
and 3 of those came back positive for cancer. So that put me at stage 3B because your staging is based on lymph nodes.
Right. Whether or not there's lymph node
Um,
involvement, which could make it
right,
travel to other organs and places in your body,
right,
right?
right.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't metastatic. It didn't progress to stage 4 because it stayed within my colon.
Right.
Um, so then I ended up after surgery doing 6 months of chemotherapy, which was called Capox, which is oxyplatin and Zanola.
Okay.
So I did 6 months of that, and so this puts me at.
How did you withstand chemo?
It was interesting. Probably the worst. I mean, there were multiple side effects. I mean, I had a lot of neuropathy,
Yep.
especially in the back of my calves. I had
Oh,
what's
I've never
called the
heard that
frostbite
in the
syndrome.
Yeah, yeah. I've never
Yeah, it
heard of
was in like the
neuropathy
back
in
of
the
my
back of the
calves.
calves. I'm sorry, what anyone
Yeah.
listening, neuropathy is like tingling and numbness in your usually
hmm
hands and feet. For the people that I've
And I had it in
spoken
my
with.
hands and I had it in my hands and feet, but then it right in the back of my calves for the first, especially after the oxyplatin, for the first like 4 days afterwards.
Okay.
I had to
That's a
wear
long
like
d-
compression socks and
that's a long
yeah,
time. 4 days is a long time
yeah,
to withstand that. I
hmm
I had some crazy
yeah,
side
yeah,
effect. I didn't have neuropathy in hands and feet. What I did have after
hmm
2 of my 6 treatments is I felt like there was ants crawling in my head. Bizarre. Like
Oh yeah,
almost like my foot was asleep.
yeah.
Like when your foot goes to sleep and it's coming back, but it's not all the way back. I had that in my
Uh-huh.
head. And I remember telling my mom, I feel like I have ants crawling in my head. And I got to thinking later,
hmm
I wonder if
hmm
that's like neuropathy because I didn't experience it in my
hmm
hands and feet.
I had that kind of idea every time about ants crawling in my arms at night.
Okay.
I had that kind of feeling like something was crawling. Yeah, I have felt
Oh, I
that,
have the chills
and I
just
had
saying it.
I know exactly. It's that
It's
PT.
taking me
I
back,
call it the
Joe. You're taking me
PTSD of
back.
cancer.
Yes.
So I did finish chemo in January of 2019, and you wait like a month to scan because they want the chemo kind of out of your system before you scan.
Mhm.
And so in February of 2019, I got told that I was NED, no evidence of disease, or what's
Mhm.
known as remission.
Yep.
And the whole period through chemo, I did go through a bout of depression
Mhm.
because I'm not a depressed person. I was
Mhm.
I was a pre-K teacher
Yeah.
for 20
Yeah.
years prior to getting
A
cancer.
very
So
happy
you can
guy.
imagine, not too many pre-K teachers that can have depression.
Right.
And
Right.
but that's where it kind of took me to this really kind of depressed state, broken state. Even my oncologist noticed it one day, and he was like, I've known you for 5 months, and you've never come off being hurt or broken. You've always been really positive." And I think what happened was everything was thought because my wife handled the clinical part of my cancer, I was sort of going through the motions,
Yep.
showing up for, I say cancer is sort of like showing up for my wedding. I was just kind of told where to go, where to sit, what to
Yes.
say,
Yes.
and it just always started hitting me that, I could have a reoccurrence. There was still this 30% but even with my chemo, there was still a 30% chance my cancer could return.
Yeah.
Um, and just kind of going through just at times not wanting to do chemo and feeling the burden of it. And it just all started kind of coming in on me.
It's like
And
the
I
totality of everything finally hits you, right? Like you go through and you've
exactly
got a job to do, right? So you were showing up to do
right.
your job. You were showing up for your appointments, for your
Yes.
scans, for your chemo, all the things. And then at some point, for everybody I know, myself included, the totality of everything hits you and it's like, holy crap. Like this is
Hmm.
cancer. This is serious. This could come back
Yes.
even when I'm
Yes.
finished. And especially I was stage 3
Yes.
and like you, it matters. I mean,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
I always say, we whether you're stage 0, stage 1, stage 3, we all heard the words, you've got cancer. That's traumatic in and of
Hmm.
itself. But when you are told your
Exactly.
lymph nodes are involved and now we're stage 3,
Hmm.
it ups the ante for me and my anxiety
Exactly.
surrounding, and trying not to live in fear. So that's what it sounds like happened for you, just like me. I went into a
Yes.
depression
Yes.
for a time.
Yes, and I ended up I did. It's so funny. My wife and I were at the appointment that day, and so my oncologist was like, there was a therapist on their floor, and he said, "Well, can I bring in our therapist and just sit and talk with you and your wife?" And I was still in this state where I thought we were fine. Like I
Yeah.
was just like, "Oh, we're good. I'm getting through the treatment. We'll be okay." And my wife's looking at me like, "No, we're not.
Yeah.
We're not okay. I can't be your only sounding board. I can handle the clinical side of this, but emotionally, I need you to talk to somebody." So I realized as the patient, I needed to show the care as her being my caregiver
Yeah.
and get the support she needed me to get. So I started, we did sit together as a couple, did a couple of sessions, and then I went off and spent probably about 3 months in therapy.
Mhm.
And we found out that that the talk therapy helped me,
Good.
that I didn't need antidepressants and I didn't need anything else,
Mhm.
any other protocol. And then really once I was done with chemo, I was pretty good. I
I
did
would
continue to go
recommend,
to a monthly support group. I did go to
yeah.
a monthly support group.
Would you recommend therapy to every cancer patient if they have it available to them?
If they have it available, and specifically a therapist that understands the needs of a cancer patient, because I think it's very different.
Yes.
Luckily, my cancer center did have a therapist that specifically knew how to work with cancer patients.
Absolutely. And I love that your doctor recognized and stopped right there and then and said, "Can I bring somebody in?"
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I talk a lot about mental health on this show is because
Hmm.
I think it's the component that's left out of cancer care. I feel like a lot of treatment centers have awesome programs in place and protocols, and okay, this person's been diagnosed with this, and now we're going to get them a nurse navigator, and they're going to walk them through, and we're going to give them physical therapy, and we're going to give them this, and we're going to give them that. And they hand you all these brochures of support groups. But the one component that's
Right.
left out is really addressing the mental health, the trauma, the
Hmm. Oh
PTSD
yeah.
that almost all of us have. And if left untreated, it is a hot mess.
Yeah,
It's a hot
exactly.
mess. So I love the
Exactly.
fact that they brought them in.
I know a lot of people that have struggled to even get treatment because of the mental illness side of it. Like they didn't even want to go to
Absolutely.
treatment. They skipped treatments. Exactly.
Yeah, they're
Exactly.
riddled. I've had people riddled with anxiety because you know how every time you
Hmm.
have chemotherapy, even if you're having the same regimen, right? For like, let's just say
Right.
5 treatments, you can have
Hmm.
one set of side effects on treatment 1 and a totally different set on treatment 2 and
Oh
none
yeah.
on treatment 3 and 4 makes you think you're going to
Yep.
die, right? I know I had 6
Exactly.
treatments. When I
Exactly.
got to 5, I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm done. I don't need that sixth
Yeah.
one. I
Yeah.
can't, you know,
Right. Oh
but
yeah. Oh
it's
yeah.
I've had people come through the care project here that said, I don't think I can go, and I
Yep.
just think, oh my gosh, if everybody was offered even just a one-time consultation in the beginning to say with a
Hmm.
therapist to say,
Hmm.
if you start to feel
Right.
this way, please reach out to me. Here's my card. Something's got
Yes.
to change.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Sorry,
And I
tangent.
think it was, I mean, no, you're fine. No, I totally agree. I mean, luckily I am being seen at Duke Cancer Center.
Mhm.
And typically most of your national cancer institutes have some sort of therapy set up. Um, and Duke, Duke Cancer Center just has a great team like that. Their therapy program is actually a nonprofit. So you don't necessarily
I
have to
love it.
be a part of Duke's system to actually get therapy. You can come from anywhere to get
That's
therapy.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Shout out to Duke,
Yeah.
man. That's awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome. So
Yes.
you get
Yes.
through,
Yeah.
so you went on to have more therapy for a time.
I did. Even when I got that NED, I remember I was at my therapy group, and my therapist pulled me aside because she led the group, and she's like, I know I'm excited for you that you're NED, but I think you're going to need to call me in a couple of months because you're going to hit a wall. And
Yep.
she was exactly right. I hit
Yep.
that wall again where I started worrying about, well, what do I do now? I'm not in, because at least when I was going through chemo, I was doing something about the cancer.
That's
And
it
now
right
that
there.
it's almost like I was mourning the death of the cancer. Like it was
Yeah.
almost like I didn't know what to do anymore. What do I
Well, that's
do? I'm not
it.
just sitting
It's
here
like,
waiting
what
for it to come
now?
back.
It's like, what
Yeah,
now?
yeah,
Right? What now? We always say that. It's
exactly.
like, what now? And then you get a headache and you're like,
Exactly.
is it in my
Exactly.
brain? And then your back
Yep.
hurts and you're like, is it in my
Yep.
back? And what do you do with those
Exactly.
feelings?
Exactly.
Nobody tells you
It,
that that's going to come.
exactly. And the funniest thing recently, about 3 months ago, I started having these headaches, a lot
Oh,
of
Lord.
headaches. And so it started making me wonder because there is like this 1% chance that with colon cancer that it can metastasize to your brain.
Mhm.
And so I just casually sent my oncologist an email one day and I said, "Hey, could I come in just for a brain scan? I'm having these headaches lately and just curious. I'm just for my curiosity. I'm getting ready to enter my third year and I would just like to get an idea." He's like, "Yeah, yeah, come on in. We can kind of get a baseline and see how you're doing." So that we did the MRI that day. And the funny thing, the lady that did it, she was like, "You look fine, but you've got all this fluid behind your nose. I think you just have a sinus infection."
Oh, you're like, I'll
It
take it.
wasn't, but in your mind, that's where your mind goes. You
Absolutely.
think, and I didn't even
Listen,
think, I didn't even think, sinus infection, but,
people don't get
you
it.
know, it,
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right. ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
People don't get it.
yeah,
And then if we tell our non-cancer friends, right? Like, geez, I'm kind of a little
yeah,
worried. Well-meaning, oftentimes they sort of dismiss us and go, "Oh, don't be, don't think
yeah,
that way. Just be
yeah. Don't
positive."
think
And
that way.
it's like, come on, don't do that to me. Don't dismiss my
Yeah,
feelings. I
yeah. I
read
think,
something that you shared with me that I want to say about being Ned, no evidence of disease or in remission.
okay.
You said being Ned is like a gift you don't know how to unwrap, but you're grateful to have it. Oh my God, I love that. I love
Yeah,
that
yeah,
because everyone thinks you should be
exactly.
so happy. Oh, you're in remission.
Hmm.
Awesome. Da 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 da. But it's then when
Yes,
everything hits you, right?
yes,
You want to be
exactly,
happy.
exactly.
You want to be excited, but you
Right,
don't really know what to do with it.
right.
So that just sums it up for me. You just don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't you don't get any directions. They assume you know what to do. People just assume that you're okay. Like
Right.
I've had people act like it was like the flu or something. Like you've had some sniffles and you're fine, and or
Yeah.
there's no big deal. You should be okay. Why are you
Yeah.
worrying about this? Why are you still talking about it? I mean, I've had all of it.
Oh,
I've
I
had
get
all of
that
it.
all the time. Why are you still talking
Yeah.
about it? Aren't you over it now? You're good now, right?
Aren't you this? Aren't you over that?
One of my lifelong friends who I love dearly, he's like a brother to me. I remember him saying to me
Hmm.
probably 6 months after I finished like all active treatment, and he said, "So you're good now, right,
Hmm.
Madrid? You good? Everything's back to normal." I was like,
Back to
"Yeah,
normal.
no, this was not like a cold or flu, buddy. This has changed my life
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
forever."
yeah,
So let's talk about
yeah.
that. Because I could talk to you all day. But so now, fast forward, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I still continue to have what I would describe as like a frozen foot syndrome.
Okay.
So my feet are pretty cold most of the time. I still have some slight tingling in my fingers, but no nerve pain. So and obviously there is. My neurologist said it's obviously you do get a certain amount of nerve damage sometimes with
Mhm.
going through chemotherapy. But other than physically, other than I'm doing fine, in a great place, and
Good.
you know Yeah, yeah, I think it's a really good place right
Do
now.
they
Good
still
place.
follow you? Do you still get like routine lab work and annual scans or
Yes,
anything?
typically for a colorectal cancer patient that's in a lower stage, it's typically 5 years. So
Okay.
I'm entering my fourth year. And I'd been getting like I started out with 3 month scans, and then after year two, three, I went to 6 month scans and follow-ups. And this year I actually just graduated to yearly scans.
Oh, good.
So I won't. So yeah, so that was when they told me that, I was like, what? I mean, I'm not coming here for a year? And that kind of freaks you out because you're like, well, what could happen in a year? Yes, your mind
That's
goes to a whole other place. Then it's
that's
like I'm
it.
relieved that I don't have to show up for a year, but I thought, what am I gonna do? What if something happens? So,
Again, the gift you
yeah,
don't
yeah,
quite know how
yeah.
to unwrap, right?
Right. You don't know
I
how to
have an
rap. Yeah.
appointment on Monday. I have a video appointment, and so I had to go get blood work
Uh-huh.
this past Thursday, and I'm approaching
Right.
10 years, and I just keep waiting for
Wow.
her. I see her technically every 6 months, but really with COVID and everything,
Yeah.
it's been more like every 8 to 9 months. And I just keep wondering, like,
Yeah.
when is she going to kick me out? But I
Right.
I think she's not going to, because just because I think she's not going to. I'm pretty high risk for recurrence.
Right.
I'm not on any
Right.
hormone
Right.
therapy or anything. And so she's just really
Yeah.
like, okay, girl, I'm going to watch you and I'm going to let her, I'm going to let
Hmm.
her. But let's talk about
Yeah. Yeah.
advocacy, because you are heavily
Yes.
involved and you have done and gotten
Right.
involved in so much. And I love it. So tell me all about that. First of all, why? Right? People always want, and I asked, I
Right.
know why, but people who listen,
Uh-huh.
I feel, and it's probably been said to you also, you're done with it now. Why are you still talking about it? Why don't you want to just kind of move on?
Right.
Why do you want to keep talking about it? Why is
Right.
advocacy
Right.
important for you?
So when I was first diagnosed, and I had started doing some looking at online at different groups and different organizations and what was out there, and I actually ran across another podcast. It was called We Have Cancer
Hmm.
by Lee Silverstein, and he had a gentleman on there named Charles Griffin Jr. Charles was a an African American male who was only 34 at the time. He had stage four colorectal cancer. And I listened to the podcast, and afterwards, I actually reached out to him and I said, I was just diagnosed with stage three colon cancer. I really appreciated what you said on the podcast. And he had talked about really advocating for men of color, really wanting also to have men, that we needed more male voices in the space.
Yes.
And so I messaged with him and I said, I really appreciate what you're doing. Once I get through this, I want to do that. I was just so inspired by him. And so unfortunately, I was terrible thinking about him, but
Oh no. Yeah.
unfortunately, Charles passed away in the summer of 2019.
Hmm. So
And after he
young.
passed away, so young, he was only 34, young, married. He played football, I want to say for Baltimore.
Okay.
Um, he has a great YouTube video. It's called the Glow Stick Talk,
Okay.
and it's Charles Griffin Jr. And he talks about, for a glow stick to work, it has to be broken. And
Mm.
that's really, as an advocate, for us to really shine as advocates, we have to go through this period of break, especially for
Oh, I
someone who's
have
been
the
a cancer
chills
patient.
right now.
You go
I
through this
have,
space of being broken, and it just you
yeah.
light up. So, and that's what a glow
Oh
stick
my
does. So that
God.
was
I
his
love
his
that.
talk. So if he has to listen to that, it's really inspiring.
I am going
Um,
to.
but after he passed, I realized I hadn't fulfilled that promise to him, that I would
Hmm.
do that. So I had been doing some small things. I'd done a couple of 5Ks. I kind of had put my story out there a little bit, but really not pursuing it the way I do now. And so I just started reaching out and just using my voice and
Hmm.
looking at different groups of how to get some training and being an advocate. And there wasn't a whole lot out there actually at the time.
Yeah.
And a couple projects didn't really work out. And then finally, my buddy, shout out to Trevor Maxwell,
Yeah.
had seen that as well. And Trevor is a stage four colorectal cancer patient.
Hmm.
Um, and he had the same idea in his head. Like he wanted to do something where that we needed more men in the space to share their voice.
Hmm.
Men needed more encouragement. Typically, a lot of times it's the caregivers that are using their voices, that are caring for the men who are going through cancer, but the men themselves aren't saying very much.
Right.
So he wanted to create something that would give them the space that was created by men for men to
Got
encourage
it.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he started Man Up to Cancer, the webpage Man Up to Cancer, and he told me about the Howling Place group, which is a Facebook group for men going through cancer. It is a men's only space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he asked me to come on, and I had been like friend requesting men over the previous year, just because for myself, at times I would go into a lot of the cancer groups and they pretty much weigh in like, 30-70,
Mm-hmm.
70% women, 30% men. So I
Yeah.
would like friend request the men just so
Mm-hmm.
I could message with them if I had questions, wanting to understand what it's like to be a father going through cancer,
Right.
or what it's like to be a husband going through cancer,
Mm-hmm.
because you lose some of that as a cancer patient.
Yep.
As a man, you lose some of those roles and how hard it was to lose that and gain it back. And so I would just reach out to all these guys, and I eventually had about 500 men that I was kind of messaging with or talking
Wow.
with
That's a
through
lot.
Messenger. Yeah, it was a lot. I didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah.
And so when Trevor started the Facebook group called The Howling Place, he said, "I tell you what, let's just open it up." And he didn't know that I knew all these people. Like he didn't know who I knew basically. And so when he said invite everybody, I just invited every male friend I knew that had cancer.
Yeah.
And I think we had like 300 join in the first month.
Yeah.
And that was in January of 2020. And now we are at 1,400, over 1,400 members in the group,
I
in
love
the
it.
Facebook group.
I
Yeah.
love the premise
And
of it. I love that it was born out of your guys's need and seeing that,
mhm,
that gap. That's how I started the care project. I saw a gap in my
yes.
community and
hmm
and
hmm
thought, okay, let me do something about it. So I love that what he's created and how you all have come on board. So how
Yeah.
has that helped you? What do you see is like the biggest takeaway from having that space?
I think it's helped me to find my voice because I think
Mhm.
on the other side of cancer, this was me before cancer. Like I'm not someone that I couldn't hid behind the shadows type of guy. I supported people doing things, but I wasn't the one out front doing it.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of pushed me to find my voice. It's pushed me to get out of my comfort zone. uh, Even this past year, I got on a plane for the first time in 30 years and flew. I wouldn't have done that for cancer,
Yeah.
but the purpose of me going now, I had a purpose in going. It was to work with, plan some advocacy functions and things with Colintown.org and um, being a part of that. So that gave me a purpose. And I think it gives me a purpose on the other side of my cancer. I don't want another man to feel the way I felt.
Yeah.
And I want them to know that they're not alone,
Right.
that there is support out there. I don't want to see their marriages fall apart. I've seen
Right.
so many marriages fall
Oh
apart
my
because of
gosh, me
cancer,
too. Me too.
and
I say it all the
I want
time.
and a lot of our guys bi-monthly, well, we do semi-monthly Zoom meetings twice a month in our group, and a lot of the guys come in the group and talk about therapy, but they've never been, and a
Mhm.
lot of them have gone on and pursued it because of the conversations we've had just in that group where the other guys would share that they went into therapy, or they went to couples therapy because their husband and wife were struggling,
It
and
helps
so they
normalize it,
there was
right? So if you
right,
all
right, right,
share,
right,
so if a young guy comes in or even an older guy comes into the group and
yes,
is in shambles emotionally or psychologically, and the marriage is
hmm
rocky, or even relationships with your kids or whatnot, if they come in and
yes,
they hear you being
hmm
now on the other side of active treatment and in
yes,
remission, talk very normally about how therapy has helped you, that
hmm
almost gives them permission, like, oh, okay, I can do that. Because there's a
yes,
vulnerability, whether you're male or female, but
hmm
especially male, right?
yes,
To
yes,
seeking
yes,
therapy and even asking for help. Like, I was this strong chick, single mom. I wouldn't even
yeah,
ask anybody to come take my trash out, let alone ask for
yeah,
therapy, right?
yes,
So,
yes,
and I
yes,
have three brothers. So most of my
hmm
best friends are males. And I know the male
yeah,
brain uh pretty well.
hmm
I would just say that shout out to you and Trevor and everybody involved in mentoring these other men that come in after you, because you are giving them permission to not only speak freely about just the everyday part of cancer, the symptoms, the side effects. You can bitch
yeah,
and complain, but you can
right,
also be vulnerable and say, this is affecting my marriage.
yes,
right? And you guys
Yes,
can surround
exactly.
them with knowledge and inspiration and the, hey,
Hmm.
this is normal, dude. Go get therapy, whatever. I
Yes,
love that.
yes,
Love, love,
yeah,
love that.
yeah, yes, yes, yes.
And
And
sometimes you guys don't even talk about cancer, right?
we
Sometimes you're just
don't
hanging
like
out.
we have it's funny, the first day of each month we call it our ABC day. It's anything but cancer,
I love
where
that.
the guys do share about their hobbies, the things they're doing, their
Yeah.
sporting events, their family events. And we actually have now it's more like just whenever you can do that whenever you want to. You don't have to wait for a certain day, but it's
Yeah.
always kind of that we set aside that special day in the
I
group.
love that.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
But
important.
but
It's
yeah,
important. Yeah. What other groups are you part of? Because you're a part of a whole lot of stuff.
well, it's funny when I started out this, I just kind of threw myself into it, but I work with colontown.org, which is a group. It's basically an emotional support group and peer-to-peer education for
Okay.
colon cancer patients. It's basically about 100 and over 120 groups based on Facebook groups, based on your diagnosis, your staging, anything like if you have neuropathy or if you have an ostomy or anything within your treatment. There's like a
Hmm.
separate group for each one to get
Oh, okay.
support. And it's run by we have a mayor. Her name is Lindsay Emma. We jokingly call her
The
she's the
mayor.
mayor
I
of
love that.
Town, which is not a really real town, but it's these groups, and she does a lot of hard work
I
for
love
it.
that.
Um, but the interesting thing for me was in my early part of my journey through manic to cancer, we actually well, actually, Trevor and I met a woman named Jane Vinson. And you were talking about the 49ers earlier, and Jaden Oaks was an incredible 49ers. He loved the 49ers. In fact, they
Hmm.
featured him at one point with some of the players. But unfortunately, he passed away at he was diagnosed at age 11 with stage 3 colorectal cancer. It did eventually metastasize, and he died at age 13.
Wow.
And over that 2-year period, we were able to support that family through cards and letters, emotional support. And I went on to create through Colon Town what's called Colon Town Junior to support children. You're up again? Sorry.
Oh, I'm over
You
here
got me?
dying right now because I'm just thinking I'm a mom, I'm a grandma, like, and I have the chills. Who knew that that's even possible? Let's go back to that for a minute. Like, who
Yeah,
knew
it,
that's
it's
even
it's li-
possible?
it's actually known 100 children will be diagnosed with some form of colorectal cancer each year.
Wow.
Um, Luckily, in some cases, it is caught early, so it may
Okay.
be just as simple as removing a small tumor, and they go on with their life. But unfortunately, a lot of times when we get these families, they're in the later stages. They're in the
Yeah.
stage 4 stages.
Yeah.
I've had about 5 children pass away this year from stage 4 colorectal cancer.
Oh,
And so we created a space to offer emotional support, much like the core group Colon Town does, but we've made it smaller for these families to give them some support emotionally and connection. The one thing Jaden told me his grandmother said
mhm.
is that these families were so spread out they had no connection. And so we provided the space for them, and we're growing it. I'm actually going to become the program manager for Colon Town Junior, and I'm actually going to be a part of the cabinet coming up.
I love
So
that.
for Colon Town, so I'm
Oh,
able to
I have the
bring a
chills.
voice to it. Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that you're doing that. I love that you're doing that. And it's so important. I think, like you said, the connection is everything.
Hmm.
Whether it
Hmm.
be like my survivor social group here or,
Hmm.
your man up to cancer in the howling place, or if
Hmm.
it's this, I mean, connection is so important. So
Hmm.
important.
Hmm.
And especially with
Yeah.
that being so rare for kids to be
Hmm.
diagnosed for those
Hmm.
families, I imagine,
Yeah.
if someone's
Yeah.
diagnosed here in my town, like where is going to be the next person that they're going to connect to? I mean, wow.
Right.
Wow. I'm kind of speechless
Exactly.
behind that.
And it is so unexpected to these families. They don't expect, going back to this everybody says it's an old man's disease, but you
Yeah.
don't expect a child to get, and they're in complete shock. And a lot of times the oncologists, pediatric oncologists don't understand it. They're having to research and figure it out because there's definitely very little research done when it comes to the pediatric version of this.
Yeah.
There are
Wow.
no clinical trials available. Maybe one out there they're pursuing, but nothing under the age of 18. So they're left with the adult treatments, which most of their bodies can't handle.
Yeah.
These younger kids,
Yeah.
if we can get them to 17, 18 years old, they can handle it better because their bodies are growing and they can handle the treatments. But
Right.
it's a real struggle for these families.
Wow. There's days I want to quit. There's days I don't want to do this.
Mhm.
There's days I want to go live my life and do all the things I haven't done,
Yeah.
because I got married so young. I started having kids at
Mhm.
18, and I
Yeah.
haven't done a lot. I've worked 2 jobs for many, many years. And then I got diagnosed. And then a year after my
Mm.
diagnosis, I started the Care Project. So now I do
Mhm.
both jobs. And then my
Yeah.
big bright idea, having self, decided, let's do a podcast.
Yeah.
And now, right now, I'm in nobody knows this, well, only a couple of people know, but I'm enrolled in an end of life doula school because I
Oh,
found
wow.
that I have a huge heart for dealing with terminally ill patients. And I find
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
easier for me and more fulfilling to sit with the dying and to help them
Mhm.
find peace before death than I do with the
Yes.
newly diagnosed. And
Yeah.
I don't say
Yeah.
that as a yay me, it just is the way I'm wired. And so I
Yeah.
found this woman named oh gosh, chemo brain. What is her name? Deanna Cochran. She has a
Mhm.
school.
Mhm.
She's a retired hospice nurse, but she has a
Okay.
school that she basically dedicates her work to her mother who passed from cancer in 2005. And so she brings all
Yeah.
this knowledge, the medical knowledge, but the business knowledge and the know-how to deal with patients in
Mhm.
a compassionate way. So
Yeah.
yeah. So here I go with one more thing, but I just think it's
That's
again with
wonderful.
the mental health
Mhm.
and the death and dying. These are not
Yes.
things that people talk about, and we need to normalize those
Mhm.
conversations because cancer or not, we're all going to die at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. And you
So
hear people are very afraid of hospice
yeah,
and palliative care, but we know how important that is, even in
right.
the quality of life, in the quality of
And
life.
yes,
And
absolutely. So we're going to keep talking about it. And as soon as I'll be done with my training in a couple months. And so I'll be adding that as an offering here through the Care Project, as well as a little side business for me to create some income.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, all the things. But I have the chills talking to you. Thank you so much. I'm sending you a big fat
You're
hug.
welcome. You're welcome.
I will talk to
Thank
you
you.
soon and I will let you know when
Okay.
this is going to be out. Okay. All
Awesome.
right. Talk
Thanks so
to you
much, Carrie.
soon. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Handle with Care, Cancer and Beyond. Please let us know what you think of the show by leaving a rating and review. And don't forget to share it with a friend. For more information or to connect with Carrie, go to thecareprojectinc.org.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right. ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.